Yo. All right. All right. All right. All right. Um, today we're gonna finish up with what we did in class the other day. This would be practice and review for Module 6, or for Module 5, getting ready for Module 6, and in between directions, like right now. I'm going to be eating ramen noodles and drinking coffee together. Hot coffee with hot and spicy chicken flavored ramen noodles by Marachin something something today. So go get you some of that and you'll be better off for it. And this is what we're going to be making. I'm just going to start from scratch for the people that may have been absent in class. It's going to look like that. Alright, that's what we're doing. So I'm going to create a new composition here. If you want to create the same composition as me, it's 1920 by 1080. The amount of time is 15 standard. Really, I'm only using about 3 seconds, so I'm going to cut this down to reduce the file size and make this 3 seconds. And then click OK. And now I'm going to get started. So I'm going to create a rectangle with fill on and stroke off. So I'm going to turn the stroke off. I guess I could just do it here, or you can click on the word stroke and click the white rectangle with a red line through it. And I'm just going to make it look like a line right here, and I'm going to center the anchor point and then center the object to the screen. So first, center the anchor point, Control Alt Home. Now Control Home to center this shape, and I'm going to move it down now. The reason I pressed Control Home was simply to center it on the screen, and I'm going to move it down so the animation takes place down here. Pardon me. And now what I'm going to do is animate the scale first. So I'm going to press S for scale, and I'm going to click this chain right here to delink the X from the Y. I'm going to start my animation at 10 frames, and it's going to go to, as of right now, 20 frames, but I could probably move it around. This is the shape that I want this rectangle to end at when it's done scaling, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn on to lock in that state right there. Go to 10 frames right here and change the X to 0. Alright, now I'm going to go test that to see if that's what I like. It's a little too slow for me, so I'm going to drag the keyframe down to 15. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to go in between, and I'm going to change the scale from 100% on the X to a little bit beyond it so it goes a little bigger, so maybe 120. I'm going to press F9 on that keyframe to ease into that position and ease out. A little too fast for me, so just dragging those keyframes around. That right there is pretty good for me. So I'm going to press enter on this. I'm going to name this line, and I'm going to lock it for now. And I'm going to move on to the square. So now in this case, I'm going to turn the fill off. Clicking on the word fill, clicking on that, and I'm going to change the stroke right now to 10, see what it looks like, and possibly change it. I'm going to hold shift while making this square to lock in the proportions of a square, and then I'm going to center the anchor point, Control Alt Home, Control Home to center this. And this is where I want this square, this rectangle to end, so I'm going to go ahead, animating the position alone, and I'm going to press P, check the timing of when the line comes in. So at about right here, I want this square to be here, so I'm going to lock in the position in this state right here simply by turning on position. And now I'm going to go down at about 15 frames. I can change the timing later, and I'm going to move this down while holding shift. I'm going to put a mask on it later, but right now this is what this is going to look like. I also want it to rotate, so I'm going to press R. On the second keyframe, put my mouse over the second keyframe, I'm going to press R. I'm going to lock in this position right here, so this is where this is the state of the square when it's done. So go into 15 frames, which is when I started the position. I'm going to press R again, and I'm going to change the angle of this to 180 at this point. So this square is going to rotate in like that. Alright. And now what I'm going to do inside of this Before I go inside of this square, I'm going to press enter and I'm going to name this square. And for now, I'm going to lock this so I don't accidentally mess it up or put a mask on it. Now what I'm going to do using the shape tool, the shortcut key for the shape tool is Q. I'm going to create a circle inside of this square while holding shift, creating a perfect circle. I'm going to center the anchor point to the object, Control Alt Home. I'm going to center the object to the screen, Control Home. This is where I want this circle to be. So I am going to turn the fill on and turn the stroke off. Simply change the pixels to 0. And I'm going to animate the scale on the circle, and going to the point in which I want the scale of the circle to be this size. Let's just for now say it's 25 frames in this situation. I'm going to turn on the scale at that point. I'm going to go to 20 frames, leaving the chain where it is because I want the X and the Y to animate together. And then I'm going to check the timing. That looks good. And then I'm going to do the same thing in here. I'm going to change the scale a little bit beyond 100%. Actually, I'm going to change the scale of this in here so it's about 75% of what it was. And then before this keyframe here, change the scale to about, let's say, 125 and see if it fits in there. It does. I want to press F9 on this keyframe so it eases in and eases out. Okay, that happens a little too quick, so I'm going to drag these keyframes this way. Okay, that for me is okay. And now, this circle is going to stay on the screen for about till about 1 second here and 15 frames, and then I'm going to animate the position going off the screen. First, I'm going to lock in the position here before I move it. It's very important that you tell the computer when you want it to start moving by turning on the stopwatch at the point on the timeline in which you want it to start moving. And let's say I want it to move off the screen in the matter of 5 frames from 15 to 20. And I'm just going to use the move tool here. Shortcut key for that is V. While holding shift, I'm going to move this up. Now I'm going to check the timing. Okay. Before this guy moves up, I'm going to make it move down a little bit, so it's going to go down first and then go up. So right here it starts here and then it just simply goes up. I'm going to move the timeline in between these two keyframes. Click on this shape while holding my mouse button down. Now I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to drag it down so it almost touches the baseline here of this square. And I'm going to see what that looks like. So that happened a little too fast. What I'm going to do is select these two keyframes here and drag them further down the timeline. Check the timing again. Okay, that's all right. Now what I'm going to do on this keyframe, select this, press F9 to ease in and ease it out. And I'm going to move this keyframe this way, simply now checking the timing. Okay, that looks all right. And now what I'm going to do is lock this layer after I name it circle. And now what I'm going to do is put in my alpha mats. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and use the shape tool. Shortcut key is Q. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and just so that the contrasting colors are easier to see for me and you, I'm going to create a big rectangle up here that just touches the top of this square. And I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom of the screen here that just touches the baseline of the line right there. Alright, and what I'm going to do is name, now I made a mistake. I'm going to Control Z that. The reason I put two shapes on the same layer is because I have this layer selected. I did not mean to do that. I meant to deselect and then add the shape below. So what I'm going to do on this while I have it here, press enter and name this top. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but first deselecting that top layer, and I'm going to put that shape back down here where it just touches the bottom of that line. Now I'm going to click on this, name it bottom. Now what I'm going to do is unlock these layers, and how an alpha mat works is it affects the layer that's immediately below it. It's the same thing as a mask. Consider it a blanket. So if this circle goes up here and it's underneath this red layer, you will not be able to see it because it's covered up. So what an alpha mat does, an alpha mat will make this invisible while at the same time covering this up. So I'm going to move the top right here, if it's not already, directly above the circle layer. And on the circle layer, I'm going to change this first none option to alpha matte top. Okay, so on circle, change the first none option to alpha matte top. If you do not have this option, all you do is press F4 and this will pop up. So in this situation, you don't want alpha matte top. I apologize. What you do want is alpha inverted matte top. What that means is this shape will only show up when it's not in the area of this shape. So when it is inside this, it's going to disappear. So you will see once it goes up, it's going to completely disappear. We're just going to do the same thing for the square on the bottom, meaning that we have to move the bottom underneath the square layer. Okay, and once you're done with an alpha matte, in this case top, you can just turn it off and it still works the same. This will go up and disappear. So what you do now on the square, okay, make sure the square is under the bottom. I made a mistake there, and you're going to change change that to alpha matte inverse. So now when the square goes down, it is covered up. And now all we're going to do is get rid of this animation here. So this will be the conclusion of this animation. And what I'm going to do is scale first. After the circle goes away, the box is going to rotate and go back down in position. So I'm going to click on the square layer, and I'm going to animate first the position. The position down here happened in a matter of 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want it to go away in the same amount of frames. So after the circle disappears, from 25, and let's go to 25 to 2 seconds. So this would be 1 second, 25 frames at 2 seconds. This square is going to disappear. So I'm going to lock. Actually, the easiest way to do this is go ahead and copy this second keyframe. So I'm going to select it, press Control C, Control V to paste it here, and then I'm going to go ahead 5 frames, and I'm going to copy this first keyframe, Control C, Control V here. So now it goes away. And the same thing I want to do with position, I want to do with rotation. In the same amount of frames, 5 frames, I'm going to press R, and I'm going to copy the second keyframe here, Control C, Control V, go to 2 seconds, and copy this keyframe here, Control C, Control V. So it's going to rotate back out of scale. And then I'm going to test the timing here, press play. Okay, that happens a little too quick for me. I don't want the square to go away as soon as the circle is out of position, so I'm going to select these keyframes and just drag them to the right a little bit. A little too quick, so I'm going to drag this to 2 seconds, so this animation is going to start at 2 seconds of the square disappearing. Okay, so now I need to do the same thing with position. Grab both position keyframes and drag them to the right. Okay, that's good. So now the last thing I want to do is animate the line disappearing. And all I did was scale on that. So I'm going to copy this keyframe here. Control C, Control V. I'm going to test how many frames are in between these 2 keyframes. So I'm going to hit page up 1, 2. So that's 2. I'm going to copy this keyframe here, click on it, Control C. Go back to this keyframe, hit page down twice, 1, 2, Control V, and paste that position. Now I'm going to determine how many frames are in between the first keyframe and the second keyframe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to click the first keyframe, Control C, hover over top of the second keyframe down here, and press page down 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Control V. Now this line disappears, and here is what the animation looks like. Pretty basic, pretty easy. Again, alpha mattes, and remember that today you should eat some ramen noodles. That is the conclusion of this video.